We're back over here at the main stage. Hope you guys have been enjoying the Hype Zone live action, but we're gonna slow it down for just a second and talk about RPGs. Now to a new action RPG game that looks absolutely beautiful here. We have Ashen.
And to tell us all about it, we'd like to welcome Derek Bradley from Aurora 44. How are you?
Good, thank you very much for having me.
Hyped to be here?
Absolutely.
Now, thanks for joining the stage. Of course, we're going to talk about Ashen, but for those who may not know, or maybe new to the, or maybe not, have heard it around and kind of curious, give us the rundown of what to expect, kind of, and what is Ashen?
Sure, so gameplay-wise, the three biggest features I would say would be that it's a big open world. So immediately, like you'll get released into this massive open world that you can explore. You can run around, you can do whatever you want. But there are quests and things like that to guide you through there too. It has passive multiplayer, so you don't have to go into lobbies or anything like that. People will just kind of run past you, and you'll be able to. You'll be able to decide who you want to play with. If you don't want to play with them, you just kind of run away and So
if I wanted to fight anyone I saw, I could?
You can't.
Oh no!
It's completely co-op.
Oh, fantastic.
We sort of made that choice early on to be able to, I suppose, cater the whole gameplay experience towards co-op. So everything's all about like how you interact with players, or even just how you see another player doing something else out in the world and kind of copy what they're doing, or find something interesting by just watching them and not necessarily actively engaging with them.
Yeah.
Oh, I like, so you like passively just kind of hang out with them, see what they're doing, explore with them?
I mean, honestly, sometimes it might just be that you see them in the distance, like finding something, and you decide you want to go somewhere else, but you make like a mental note, hey, there was someone doing something over there, is quite interesting.
So it's more like PvE versus PvP?
It's absolutely PvE.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is certainly the combat is stamina-based, animation-driven combat, which is that sort of like high-risk, high-reward combat. Yeah.
Nice, I love it. And of course, we're playing the demo right now. A little bit of footage here. You can take a look and check out this video here. We're going to show it off a bit, and then you can see rolling with the screen Ashen. Now, for the concept of Ashen here, kind of what were some of the influences when you were slowly starting to build this game, concepting it? I always love where those like passions like fire up from, and then we have this.
Yeah, it's actually a really interesting process that we have, because we almost like, we don't necessarily start with like an art style or a game mechanic or anything like that. We kind of start with an environment that you want to play in, and that's influenced so many things. Like the fact that our players, the characters in Ashen don't have faces, is because we made this sort of environment, and we got buy-off from our whole team on like, this is a place I'd want to spend time in. It's an interesting place. And then after doing that, we kind of started to do concept art and figure out like what our characters should look like. And by kind of drawing them within the environment, the faces weren't such an important aspect of the overall picture, which was a very interesting thing to us, because we'd been putting faces on them, doing all that kind of stuff before that, and we kind of just came to that point. Which also, it's great when these sort of things synergize, because that you're meeting strangers run past you all the time. We didn't want to necessarily pre-program like a facial expression onto somebody, because then you're going to like judge them by like this girl looks a bit angry, or this guy looks like he's kind of like got a smile on his face, like why? What's he laughing at? So to take extreme examples, but it's more just that like what you do out in the world is what matters.
Yeah. So if the way the character looks, you didn't want to like make top priority, and this is the game you want to stay in, what is it that helps? What is it progression-wise, gear and stuff like that makes the player want to come back and do more? Yeah,
absolutely. So like what you can see here is like a player with like a club, which is a very early starting club, and a shield. I mean, you can obviously like upgrade your weapons and get new like interesting weapons that have new animations, different kinds of damage, all that kind of stuff. But beyond that, you get there's a very deep. I suppose you could say a crafting system that allows you to get perks, which we call Talismans and Relics. Talismans are like our lesser perks, which would do things like decrease fall damage or make your charged attacks do a bit more damage. But
a little bit of a boost here or there, depending on the perk.
Yeah, the boost here or there, and they're kind of all story-based, so they kind of tie into the whole world. And even just by reading what your talisman is, you'll kind of find out a bit more about the backstory of the world. But Relics are where it gets really interesting, where they're the sort of big game-changing perks. There are things like, one of my favorite ones is one where, like, if you die, you'll crawl out of your own body as like an ash wraith kind of creature, and you'll play that
I like
way.
It already.
That's how I do every morning.
I was gonna say, wake up.
Yeah.
So you get to play as this crazy ash wraith creature until you go find like a checkpoint and kind of reset, or until you actually die, and then you'll respawn as yourself again. You know, and there are tons of things there where, like, you know, some of them make like your attacks like do AOE electricity stuff all over the place. Others will add like these sort of like homing missiles to your attacks and stuff like that. So a whole bunch of interesting ways that players can kind of cater the way they play, I guess you could say.
And are these talismans, are they in line with a class system, or?
Not at all, and like the reason we did that was just so that players can choose what they want to do. Like if I want to play sort of like a tank who's like using two-handed weapons and like going in and being like that sort of way one day, I can do that, but I'm not necessarily locked into that forever.
Yeah.
You have to go and craft the other things, so you got to put a bit of time and investment into them, but you can switch out and like play another way if you want to.
Nice, nice. Now, tell us a bit about the players that you will be exploring, as the players that you'll be exploring in the world. In fact, I believe you have a demo specifically that you came to show us that we can take a look at, and then we will chat about the game. All right, so it looks like here, basically, is this one of like the starting early areas where you can kind of walk out and explore? Like basically, I'd just love for you to kind of be our tour guide and walk us through what we're seeing.
Oh, I love the tour guide thing.
I know.
I'm on holiday. Give me the brochure of where we are.
So absolutely, this looks like the player's just been released out into the open world. So this is the first zone you encounter. It has these sort of desperate enemies that are just clinging on to life in this world that hasn't had light for eons, and suddenly this is the first light that's kind of uncovered. So humanity in general has been suffering a little bit and kind of struggling, and these guys are quite sort of desperate people. They won't necessarily give up their goods to you without a fight. And so you're kind of exploring this area. It looks like the player is trying here to start their town. So an area that's very close to this area is the player's town, which as you do quests, like we're on one right here, you would level up your NPCs in your town, which in turn lets them like start building their buildings. So you'll see like a building phase.
So there's an effect on like the game, the wider game outside of your character as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So like one of the ways that you can reckon sort of like how far you've gone in the game is just generally like, what does my town look like? How built up is my town? Which NPCs have I favored and like enjoyed their sort of like crafting or whatever it is. But if you do more of their quests, they'll give you more and more stuff along their line too, as well as building a house and doing all that sort of stuff.
I love that, I love that. And again, we're seeing here the players seeing no faces. And again, just to kind of reiterate here, the reason in the artistical design is because you want the player to kind of basically focus on the world around them and kind of embody themselves, be able to, again, not run into like some dude with a smirk and be like,
I did see a guy on that one then with a mustache.
He has got a mustache and a pipe.
Very bold mustache as well. Is that customization in there, even though it is a blank face, there's that?
That's actually an interesting question. So the guy you're seeing in this one is actually one of your town NPCs. So what happens is, if you choose to do a quest for a certain NPC and you're tracking that quest, when someone else matches with you in multiplayer, they actually turn up as that NPC. So it feels as if the person who's asked you to do the thing is helping you to do the thing. And so we get players to kind of come in and do that kind of emergent like gameplay that we couldn't script, and take the acting role of one of your town NPCs, which gives you a bit of like a closer bond with your whole town.
I love the idea that you can then embody the person who gave you the mission instead of, so the usual is like, yes, go forth and conquer and kill the bad guy. And this guy is now a friend can join you and be like, all right, I'll help. But it's that person, you know, maybe with a, you know, brandishing mustache, or you know, they'll join with you and help you along the quest. I love the idea of that they can it can continue to feel the stories like.
And that's the whole thing, right? Is that it's a passive experience, and that the whole game is designed to help you, but you then have to conquer the game itself, right?
Exactly. So it's sort of like, in a lot of ways, it mirrors what we have in like real life. Like if you make a friend and you help that friend do something, they like, you know, you help your friend get a job or something, and they do better. They get a nice car. You see the results of that stuff in the real world, and the same thing happens in Ashen. If you help your friends that you've made in town and that you see around in the world,
and see how they're progressing in the game, and have a look at what they've been up to.
Absolutely, yeah.
And through that, when you run into those players, like what are some of those basic interactions that you can have with another player in the world?
So
there has to be a dab emoji, right? Like one of those. Over that, no. Oh, it's a different game.
He's not nodding. He's not nodding.
Exactly.
But no, absolutely, there are tons of things you can do. Like one of our early quests that actually teach you to do some stuff, which we might actually get to in this playthrough, is so you can climb in Ashen, and so you can climb like a certain height. You can kind of hop up and jump on things. When you've got another player with you, they can actually boost you up and kind of throw you further, and you'll stick your hand down and pull them up too.
Love that.
So it suddenly opens up like way more of the world that you can explore when you're together, which is one of them. You know, there's ways to point it where you want to go to show people what quest you're on or where you are, to call them towards you. But you know, a lot of what it is just like having a sort of layer in between players that means that they'll always act like NPCs, I suppose. So you can't actually like voice chat with each other. You can't text chat with each other to break characters, so to speak.
Wow.
Which is kind of like an interesting minimalism that we have going on too.
You have to have this like mental connection to figure out what you both need to do.
Yes.
You have to. I guess it's, as you said, it's cooperative to the absolute letter.
Yeah.
You can't talk to each other, so you have to do things bearing in mind the other person is there.
And be able to progress to new areas with that person.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know, the game's a lot harder without another person around to help you. So like, it's all in your favor to help them achieve their goals, and they'll help you.
And they're there to help you. You can't just run off ahead and they catch up, which is, I suppose, when you find yourself in difficult positions where you've seen some of the combat we've had here. What was it you had in mind when it came to the combat? Because we've seen here that it's super fluid. It's very good.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, we've definitely got like a stamina-based combat, which is very animation-driven, I suppose. So when you do something, you really commit to those attacks, and it's sort of like a high-risk, high-reward situation where, you know, if you mess that up, then I guess, like, you know, the enemies get to hit you back and do all that kind of stuff. But we've definitely put a lot of time into accessibility in that whole realm as well, where it's easy for players to get in, and like, you know, the camera kind of follows your enemy quite easily to show you where you're going to go, and doing stuff just where there's always a way, like if you can dodge out at a certain part in your attack, you're not like completely locked into it. So there's a lot of ways that we've made sure that it's a fluid experience for players. Yeah.
And what kind of combat types are there? You mentioned before that you can have double-handed weapons.
Yeah,
what are the
absolutely.
things that we got on offer?
So an interesting thing is, okay, so we've got double-handed weapons, so we've got like axes and clubs, essentially in two-handed and one-handed varieties.
Yeah.
A lot of them don't really look like axes and clubs. It's sort of crazy clubs with hooks on them, and like, you know,
they've been
things like
fashioned
that.
in
An
the
artistical
wilderness.
style.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're going to slay in
One
style.
would argue it's a club.
Yeah, absolutely. And then so there are also spears, so you can throw spears.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things that happens sort of halfway through the game is that you actually unlock this kind of spear travel, where there are these monks that you can throw spears at, and if you pierce their heart, because they are these kind of like desiccated monk corpses that are around the world.
Naturally, yeah.
And if you pierce their hearts, they draw you along these paths of shadow to them. So you could technically travel like through a whole zone doing this. If you hit like a monk right on the edge of the zone, you kind of like open your arms and fly out as a shadow towards them, which is interesting in this kind of open world game where it allows players to access a whole bunch of verticality. Like, you can travel across a whole chasm and see the world from ways that we didn't necessarily even intend, which is kind of cool. Like, you might honestly, like, you might connect with someone and just see them like flying across.
As they're
like,
just skipping along from bad guy to bad guy, piercing them.
Exactly, like doing these crazy things.
Threading the needle, just getting through them all.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Faster than public transit, it sounds like.
Yeah.
But you were talking a little bit about, for a minute there, like the bad guys in it, the creatures in it, so to speak. I'm always fascinated in something. I think there was even something where like its chest was open. Like, how am I going to kill that thing? Like, I'm always curious, like, is there counter combat to certain types of enemy types? It looks like you'll run into a slew of creatures.
Absolutely. So like playing with, I don't know, it feels spoilery to say too much, but maybe I should like hint at stuff
This
anyway.
is your choice. We're not going to press you into this.
You know, like just the items you have out, like even right at the base level, like there's simple things you could have out that would change how easy a particular enemy is. There's certain enemies that like activate on light. So because there are a lot of really dark places in the world and you've got to use a lantern, if you have your lantern out, they'll activate and like they'll jump up and try and like get at you. If you know the area and you run through it in the dark, they won't do anything. So there's kind of interesting interactions like that, which is sort of more sort of survivalish, I guess you could say. But there's other stuff where like certain like heavily armored enemies are really hard to fight with a one-handed weapon because they kind of just like block your stuff and like they kind of poise right through your attacks. Whereas other enemies, and so for those guys, you pull out a giant like hammer and just beat
like a
them up.
dual-wielded hammer, just smash them into the ground.
Like if you want to hold up a shield against this, good luck to you. But then at the same time, there are other like sort of fast ninja-like enemies that are a lot easier to like get in, have a few slices at them, get out. If you try hit those guys with a big lumbering club, you're going to struggle a little bit. So I mean, that partly is interesting because it allows two players to play together as well. So if I like using the one-handed weapons, I can get in and kind of stun him a little bit, and my friend can come in with the big.
I was going to say that sounded like it opened up for combo combat, where you can kind of thread each other into the next play. If like
if
for
you need
example,
to just step back for a second.
Yep. All I want to do is swing a heavy hammer. So
Yeah.
if you can stun them for me,
Okay, I'll set it up.
okay.
You knock them down.
Yeah, there we go. Like a 1-2 punch.
Yeah. Talking of combat, now I'm English, so I have a very nervous disposition. Are there any nice creatures out there that aren't going to chase me and like
Adorable bunnies.
Yeah,
Sure.
stuff that isn't going to come at me and have a go.
Absolutely. So like you would have seen the giant sky whale like creature that was kind of flying
I can see
over.
that. Sky whale.
Yeah. So it's
It
called.
looks scary.
Yeah.
You promise that's nice?
Partly.
Oh gosh.
Partly. But. You know, and it's called a Diosora, and the Diosora is like this big, majestic creature. It's like way bigger than anything you could hope to kill or like fight or do anything like that in the game. But you do actually manage to save its baby in one point of the game, and that becomes your fast travel. So it technically takes you around the whole world, which is a friendly creature, I would say.
Right on the back of it. And
Yeah, you're sort of right on the back, and like so you choose to go back to town, and that's the thing that'll take you there. Yeah.
Like Falcor, but you know, a little bit more of a whale.
Yeah.
like Falcon.
I like it.
That was on the mood
Comparison.
board when they made the game. Was something like Falcon?
What just reminded me of it, the way it's swimming through. I'm terrified of big oceany things, so
Right, yeah.
I'm okay with it in the sky, though. If it's a big, scary thing in the sky, I think it a little bit better. But it sounds like, again, some maybe less passive, or more passive, less aggressive creatures in there. That's great. That's great.
Thankfully.
Now, building up your town looks like kind of a pretty core mechanic of the game. In Ashen, I'm kind of curious, like, how does that exactly kind of work in building up the town? Because you mentioned it early. Yeah, the town's over in the corner. Like, what can I expect in that?
Are you putting the bricks together or getting some laborers in?
Well, interestingly, so like the people that you were fighting, those kind of like desperate humans that we saw before, you actually see them like hammering away on the town at one point and like helping to build it. But you don't necessarily, as a player, have to do it. Your town kind of gathers together and like figures out how to do all that stuff. What you need to do is like you got to go out, do quests, come back, get your quest rewards, level that townsperson up, so to speak, and they'll keep on building their own houses. As I say, like the most interesting part about it is that you've got like this really tactile in-world way to see how far you've progressed in the game, how strong your connection with certain NPCs is, and as their houses progress, they'll get like crafting stations, so they'll actually start to offer you mechanics that you don't necessarily have access to until you've unlocked their stuff.
So it's not just an aesthetic looking town, but you can actually go in and interact with things as they level up.
Absolutely, yeah, and I really enjoy like one of the things that we've done. I guess this isn't a spoiler. I've got to like check myself.
Spoilers.
But so as you go through the town and you've started like your guys have started building things, we hide loot in places in the building stages. Like if you like decide to hop down and like investigate the
Explore.
So getting to know your town is actually like critical to the game, or at least how you find extra bits and pieces.
It's just a bit of fun for us, really, and like you know, our artists have put a whole bunch of time into crafting all this stuff, and it's like a nice way to show the players like a little bit more of the town, a little bit more of the world, because each item you find also gives you like a little bit more history, a little bit more like description of what the world is all about. So, as well as you know, it might be a weapon that has a cool animation. And
I love that. And you can kind of set them up to build, go off, adventure, slay, become a hero, come back, and they can. It sounds like have that even upgraded or built up even more.
Absolutely, yeah. They just keep going, and like as they build too, they sort of start connecting things between their houses. The whole town gets like pathways and all that kind of stuff happens.
Probably a super specific question, but is this one of those things where you set them to build up and there's a cooldown, you go away and come back and it's done, or is it a gradual thing that you get to come back and you see like, oh, old man Potts has got half his wall up on his house or something?
It's very much like you'll mostly just see them kind of building it and then it's built, so
Yeah.
it's in those stages. But you don't really have to have too much direct involvement in it. Like you kind of said earlier, it's quite a passive thing and a natural thing, so it mostly gauges your relationship with that NPC in that you don't necessarily like set them up and like watch a timer go down necessarily, but like every time you come back, your town would have like subtly shifted, that it feels like this like growing organism that kind of like it kind of tracks along with you as you complete more parts of the game.
I like that. You can also see who's lazy and who's not lazy.
Exactly.
In town,
you can
depending on
have
how well.
checklists of who's doing their job or not.
And honestly, I like the idea of that they're building the town for me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's. I mean, that's the other really great thing.
I'll
Zero work
adventure,
for me.
I'll find rare things.
Oh wait, no, lots of work because I'm going out doing the fighting.
Exciting work.
Yeah. The fun.
And then old man Tom can lay the masonry. And
Yeah, he could sort out the bricks and all that.
Nice.
I'm not good with that stuff.
Nice. Well, this is awesome. Absolutely wonderful about Ashen, but we're going to have some quiz now because hopefully the people at home were paying attention. So now it's time for our favorite time of the show. So get your controllers warmed up. It's trivia time.
So, Derek, your team have provided these questions, so don't give anything away because we're giving away Xbox Live Pass.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. So the first question we're going to kick off here is, what is the large flying creature in Ashen called? Diasaura, Pazzi, Windings, and Raffet.
Isn't Windings a font?
I thought I was reading Windings as a Windings. Or Falcor.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you
for
call
bonus.
it Falcor, so
Falcor for
unfortunately
bonus.
that isn't there. Falcor isn't an option.
You got 1 second left here. There we go. The time is up. So we're going to tally up those votes here and see. But the correct answer was, and if I'm pronouncing this right, Diasaura?
Diasaura, yeah, it's free.
Oh, there we
There
go.
we
Nice.
go.
Nice. And it looks like you were paying attention. 56% of you.
Majority vote. Well done, guys. Are you ready for question 2? Because here it comes. Ashen's story features a giant humanoid race, but what are they called? Are they vagrants, Brawl, listeners, or hobbits?
I feel like that's a short joke for us.
It probably is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
got a couple
I
seconds
click
here.
hobbits just because that's me, but I wonder if the guys watching at home know.
Well, they're
we-
wanting to win Xbox Live passes.
Yeah.
So they're probably going to go for what's right.
And we are from New Zealand.
Well, there you
Oh,
go.
there you
Is
go.
there a hobbit in there somewhere that maybe we don't know?
But your time is up.
Oh,
The correct answer was listeners. That's right. Ooh, and stumped you guys too as well. Only 18% of you got that
but
one
5
right.
went for hobbits, so they behaved.
Yeah. Shout out to those 5.
Great one.
Another question here we got here is, what weapon type is not found in Ashen? This is going to be a trick one.
Yeah.
Axe, sword, club, or spear?
We definitely spoke about 3 of them.
Yeah, we did.
3 out of the 4 we spoke about.
They were specifically mentioned. So again, that's why you got to, if you're listening during these interviews, we're talking about, we're giving you hints, and then we're giving you prizes at the
This
end.
whole interview is set up so you can win some stuff during this trivia. That's it, right?
But the correct answer was sword. So that time is up here, and looks like 28% of you got that right. Hanging in there, sharpening it for the last question, I believe. We may have 1 or 2 more.
Let's have a look. The next question is, which of the following is not a location in Ashen? Is it Whispers, Latharus, Vagrant's Rest, or Avalon?
Nice. I was wondering if what second one was going to throw you.
Did I pronounce that Latharus? Latharus.
We say Latharus.
Latharus. I prefer that one, and it's definitely because it's the right way to pronounce it.
But I believe it's correctly, Avalon was the actual correct
Avalon.
answer.
Yep,
so your
that's
answer
the one.
was D. Hopefully you got that right here. 53%.
Oh yeah, they got that one. 53%. Well
They were
done.
definitely paying attention here. All right, here we got another question coming at you. Hot here, warming right up. A multiplayer duo can do the following in Ashen, except defeat bosses, open doors, revive, or swap outfits. A, B, C, or D. You've got 3 seconds left on the clock to get those in for some Xbox Live codes, and time is up. The correct answer was swap outfits.
Is that maybe a feature coming soon?
It does sound kind of interesting,
It does
doesn't
sound
it?
cool, right?
We should do those to the viewers at home, so that way it really throws them off. We'll trade up. I'll be taller then. I'll take your shoes. It'll
Well,
work out.
61% of you got that right. Well done.
And the winner, of course, accumulative points here based on speed
Is
and correctness was,
right, Apple 35.
congratulations.
Not 34, not 33, but 35.
Well, rest in peace, the first 34. So they didn't quite make it to the show. No, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Again, we've got tons of trivia here. It's going to be great. Make sure you got your controllers and your keyboards ready to go for those quizzes.
Well, thank you, everyone, for tuning into the segment. Thank you so much for being here to talk about Ashen. And well done, everyone, on the quiz. But let's toss it over to Hype Zone with some Realm Royale.
Hype Zone.